Howdy y'all, welcome back to Maverick Mods. This week, continuing on kind of finalizing the doors. Last week I worked on power doors and the door panels themselves. Couldn't quite finish it all, and unfortunately this week couldn't quite still finish it all. Let's do a quick recap. I think it's over on whichever shoulder over my shoulder it is. I'll put a link to last week's video, which was part one of door panels and electric doors, or electric windows, I should say. This week, still working on it, and I ended last week with the inability to make the door window motors work. So, got it fixed, or I think I got it fixed. Let's see how I did. Grab your popcorn, let's get started. Parts arrived for the possible fix for the window motors. And to recap from last episode, I was having problems with something to do with the power and the circuitry with the window motors, where if I hooked up one side, so if I hooked up the up and didn't hook up the down, the motor operated at normal speed. Same thing if I hooked up the down but I didn't hook up the up, then it went down at normal speed. But when I hooked both of them up at the same time, the window would go at like a quarter speed. A buddy of mine came over, his electrical engineer, and we looked through wiring diagrams and figured out, we think, after running a whole bunch of just with a multimeter test here, test there, what we found was we're kind of running into a dead end until just for, I don't even know why, we just took the voltage part of the meter and set it on voltage and checked across the up and the down wires as it was operating. And what happened was, by themselves, they would have 12 volts if you didn't, go from there to ground. But if you went across them, it was showing about 5.5 volts. And what we think is going on is this motor is basically bleeding current across, well, my understanding, bleeding current across the commutator. And it's essentially having the cutting the voltage in half, because it's kind of shooting it back up the other wire. And so let me back up a little bit. The old school, old style system, you'd have a window switch up, down, and when you went to, say, put the windows down, the entire upside wiring was isolated. So even if it was bleeding current across it, it wouldn't matter because the current didn't go anywhere. Same thing when you went up, it isolated the other side. I'm pretty sure that's the old school worked. The way this one works, it's what goes on inside that body control module is a big mystery, but it has a lot to do with how and when the windows can function. And so it kind of decides, but the body control module doesn't handle the high voltage. There is a power window relay built into the wiring, kind of, I guess it would be downstream of the body control module. So you've got window switch inputs, you've got ground inputs, you have body control module inputs into this window controller relay that controls everything. And somewhere inside of there, it doesn't like the fact that it's kind of bleeding current across the commutator, I think. Okay, long-winded explanation. Here was the solution. Well, possible solutions. One of the comments from last week's video was, I'm going to have to run basically a set of relays to isolate the power. And that was one of our potential solutions. But then I thought, well, wait a minute. If all we're trying to do is stop the current from feeding back through to the relay, the central relay, what if we just put a couple of high amperage diodes in the line right at the motor? And I think what the newer motor has, which I don't have one to test, but I think it actually had the diodes or some kind of circuitry or circuit board in that newer Z28 motor that did that. Or maybe the newer motors don't jump current across the commutators. Whatever the case may be, here's my solution. My apologies in advance for the shakiness and absolute backwoods engineering on this. This is just for test purposes. So what I've got is I've got two 10 amp diodes. For those of you, including me, who are electrical system neophytes, a diode lets current run one way, but won't let it run the other. So what I've got here is I've got my brown wire. I've got the diode just right now clamped to test it between the two wires. Same thing on the positive. And yes, they're not touching there. It kind of looks like they are, but they're not. That's a good thing. So blue to blue with the diode letting current come this way to the motor, and the current should not go past that diode, so should not feed back through to this wire, or these wires. So let's go ahead and test it. Keys on. Here's my windows. All right, up. Okay, up. Disregard that, but that is normal speed. I don't see any smoke coming from my diodes. So now I picked 10 amp diodes simply because I figured that these motors, I think they're on like a 30 amp circuit, but I don't think these motors draw much more than, 6, 7, 8 amps, maybe something like that. And for the short length of time that this thing operates, I don't think I'm going to have any heat issues with my diodes. So, and just for those of you who didn't see last week's video, there is the speed I was running across. This is the passenger window. That's what I was getting before. So needless to say, much better this time. Let me go ahead and actually permanently put these diodes in. I'm going to go ahead and solder, heat shrink, and everything so that they're nice and protected and secure. And then we'll do a test on all of this after I'm done. Well, you're looking at the passenger door wiring. I've got the diodes wired in. Everything looks good. Let's get the key all the way on. That helps. That's how the window should work. And on the driver's side, I've already got the wiring finished and tucked in. Driver's side. Driver's side's good. So windows are done. All right, so the windows are fixed, and what I used was these little guys right here. These are just 10 amp, not resistors, 10 amp diodes. And again, like I said before, these motors are not going to run long enough or continuous enough. I honestly don't know what the amp rating on the motors is. I'm thinking somewhere around 7, maybe 8 amps with an overload of higher than that, but there's not going to be power on these windows long enough for heat or any problem with these to be an issue. So that's better than using relays, and it was a cheap and effective fix. Windows are good. I can continue now on the door locks. Well guys, while I'm waiting on parts for the window motors, I figured I'd go ahead and tackle the door locks. And of course this car never came with power door locks. Again, I'm trying to incorporate the donor car, the 2000 Z28, trying to incorporate the entire system, including the door locks that came with that car. Like the power windows, there's a little added bonus that goes with this. The original Firebird powered door locks were just a switch. Hit the switch one way to lock them, hit the switch the other way to unlock them. With the donor car, I've got all the added gizmos with the door locks, including keyless entry. And the only thing you have to do with all that is all of that has to run through the body control module. And I actually looked this up. The antenna for the keyless entry for the little key fob is in the body control module. That throws a monkey wrench in things, and let me show you what's going on here. So here on the Firebird, the latch, of course, is buried back there. It's kind of hard to see. There's all kinds of rods and things moving every which way and which direction and whatnot. But like I said, this car never came with powered door locks. So there's a kit for that, which I've got, that includes this door lock solenoid. And this is basically just an up and a down. This actually comes from the later, like I think it's 78 and up, just 2 wires that connect to the system. However, with my wiring here, this is the door lock wiring, and of course there's 2 wires that go to the door lock. I know that because this is the door latch that would normally go in the door for the Z28. The door lock solenoid is built into the latch. Interestingly enough, the courtesy lights, or the door jar light, is also built into the latch. I've already separated those wires and connected them up to my door switch here, and that system works fine. However, when I took my wires here, connected them up to this solenoid, I could get up or down, but not both. So I kind of ran into a sort of similar, the same situation I was running up with the window motors. These old solenoids, these old motors, are not compatible with the new wiring system. So why is that? Well, it beats the heck out of me. I've got a theory, and it has to do with the body control module and how they routed all of the circuitry and the wiring and everything that has to go through the body control module. If you look at the latch system for the donor car, the Z28, the 2000, that's got the door lock solenoid built into the latch, there's one difference. And the only difference I can see is kind of right up in here. And this look, now I have not taken this apart. I've actually got a spare, so I might do that just to see what it looks like inside. I'm willing to bet you that there's some kind of circuit board inside of here that completes the logic for the door lock system. So in other words, with this, I have to get a ground and a signal to manipulate this thing, say, down. But that ground and that signal have got to reverse in order to move this solenoid the opposite direction. The current wiring, the Z28 wiring, does not do that. It only has a ground and a signal. And I think the logic is in here to do the switching, because if I hook this up, nothing happened. Well, I get one direction, but I don't get the other. But if I hook these up, let's take a look at what happens. So I took my door lock wires and I went ahead and tied them in. This is actually a junkyard piece here. This is, we picked this up the other day. This is a door latch for the, I don't know which one it is, driver or passenger side, doesn't matter. And I picked up the rest of the harness because I didn't have the ends to that harness. They had been damaged in the accident on the donor car, at least on one side. But I went in and picked up the latch, the rods, well, because it was easier to take the rods, and the harness, and I just tied my harness in, you know, and matched the wires up. Now, I did not do the courtesy light. I didn't think I'd need it. And let's see what happens. So here's the latch here, plugged in, power's on, and, well, my rods are all hung up, but, so I'm getting both directions door lock actuation. I hooked up the other side here just to test it. Same thing, both sides. So the fact that the just plain solenoid doesn't work, but the actual one that goes to the that would go to the donor card does work, tells me that the switching logic is in this little module here. So kind of a no-brainer. I'm going to use these, and that works. In the process, that solves another problem I have. Let's take a look at that. I've got electric door locks now, which is great. But the other latch system, or I should say the original latch system, let's take a quick look at this. And I know you can't see much inside here, and we're not going to worry too much about the door handle. That's up in there. But the lock system, you can just barely see kind of right up in there. The lock system on this is the manual locks. Just moves up down like that. Okay, so that's unlocked and that's locked. So that is a motion that goes this way. And that works fine if you're going to use the original post style locks here. But I don't want to use those. Since I'm incorporating the switch system for the windows, door locks, and mirrors into the door panel, I would like to use, of course, obviously this molded piece for the switches. Here's the handle, and here's the door lock. Now the problem I've been running across is I've got essentially a back and forth slider action on the door lock that goes in here. And of course that would transmit down the door to the latch. Problem is I've got a back and forth on the inside lock, but I have an up and down on the actuator on the door latch itself. And I've been pulling my hair out trying to figure out how to make that work. And here's the solution. Instead of mounting, normally this would mount inside the door, basically right about in that position. So, you know, if it was inside the door, it'd be about that position. It would pull straight up and down in that rod. This latch, if I mount this same direction, just like that, what I've got is I have an up and down on this for my lock, but I also have a back and forth here for my inside latch. So instead of using the old style actuator, the old style solenoid, I'm going to mount this inside the door itself, right up in there, and hook up my door latch here to this part, hook up my inside latch to here. I'll have to make up a few new rods, but that gives me the back and forth motion I need for the inside latch. Let me work on that. We'll take a look as I'm progressing on that. Okay guys, bonus footage. Let's take a look. I have been making progress on the interior. I've got kick panels and speakers installed. Disregard the fuse panel. Still have to mount that. Got the center stack with HVAC controls installed. It's got a glove box. Well, kind of a glove box. There wasn't room behind here to actually have the glove box part itself, but there's going to be a little pouch back there to hold a few papers and things like that. But the outer part of the glove box fits. Other kick panel, I've got to do some cleaning on that yet. Other kick panel and speaker. So the stereo system is in and works. Well, it kind of works. Double bonus footage. The amp and everything is wired up for the speakers in the back. So back here is done. Disregard that part of the wiring. That's actually for the speed sensors on the ABS system. Still working on just tidying up the wires for the fuel pump. I'll get that done. But here's the bonus footage. These are the Firebird taillight housings. These are the sockets from the Z28. This is the backup light. Everything fits. I was expecting to have to basically cut and resplice the old sockets, but everything fits. So I'm going to work on tidying up the wiring back here for the taillights, and everything back here in the trunk is really close to being done. So I don't know if that's, I don't know what item that is, 962 on the 4,000 things left to do, but I'm chipping away a little bit at a time. That's going to do it for this week, guys. Didn't get quite as far as I wanted to. Life got in the way. We've got the holidays coming up, and I'm hoping that here in the next couple weeks I can carve out some time to really make some serious progress on kind of the final things on the Firebird before I can button things up and start on the bodywork. Looking forward to that. Thanks to all you guys that are tuning in every week. I can't tell you how much it means to me. If you want to reach down there and hit that subscribe button, cool. If you want to share the video, cool again. What else is there? If you want to like the video, even more cool. We'll see you guys next week. Everybody, have a great day.